Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today's video is all about what do you do with your tomato plants in September, October. I have a good 6 weeks before my first frost. Your tomato plants can still grow, they can still produce. I'm going to go over a couple of myths on really about how do you speed up the ripening of tomatoes. I have a lot of tomatoes to pick. A couple of things. Die off. Where the leaves have died off because of the heat, maybe you're not watering regularly, you can leave them on there. There's nothing wrong with that. Nature, all plants in nature, leaves die off, they drop to the ground, they basically act as a mulch, and then they break down and they feed the plants, or they feed whatever's going to grow in that space. So you don't have to over worry about trimming everything. Continue with the sprays if you still have diseases in your areas. This was just hit with hydrogen peroxide. These plants are really green. I'm going to show you several different plants as we go through this video. Tomatoes look good. Although this week has been 95, 100 degree temperatures, they're getting beat up again. Keep up the watering. A lot of people just forget about their tomato plants in September, and that's the biggest issue, is that we neglect them. Just look at all these beautiful tomatoes. This is one plant growing along the cattle panel, and I have really more tomatoes than I need. Today is September 7th. Been protecting these with some shade cloth. Don't neglect the plants because you're burned out from the season. Try watering these every other day. If your temperatures are still in the 90s, you're going to get continued growth of beautiful tomatoes. Let's go over to another area and talk about the myth of topping off your tomato plants. I just wanted to cut in, I think it's important, that the goal of a tomato plant is to continue to grow. The main growth comes up top. It continues to put out new leaves, flowers, and vines. And here's a great example. You can see this plant is vining all the way over here to my cattle panel, and it just continues to develop flowers. It's doing really well. The plant gets energy from all the new leaf growth. It gets energy from the roots, pulling nutrients out of the earth. It's not going to repair what is down in the middle. If you have tomatoes down here, it's going to take care of them, but they're not going to get larger just because you cut the tops off. We have really been told that if we top off the tomato plant, it's going to speed up ripening, it's going to get you larger tomatoes. That's just not true. What is true is that allowing the vine to grow, allowing the tomato plant to grow, allowing it to produce flowers, it's going to think it's doing really well. If you want to increase the size of the tomatoes that are on your plant and the ones that are developing before that frost comes, don't top off the plant, just get in there and remove the flower clusters. Energy won't go into creating new tomatoes. You'll get the sunlight hitting all these leaves, the plant's happy thinking that it's doing fine. All that energy is going to go into taking care of the tomatoes that are there. So I don't recommend topping off the plant. It's not going to get you larger tomatoes, and it's not going to speed up ripening. That's the other thing that we're told, that if we top them off, all the energy is going to go to speeding up the ripening of your tomatoes. That's just not true. I mean, the best way to really worry about that is not to worry about it. Let them develop. They're going to mature and ripen at their own speed. And if you have to, you can just pick them green and put them on your windowsill, and they're going to ripen. These guys are a little bit beat up. I'll probably be keeping that variety back there. I think that's a Belgian pink. The other ones are a little bit beat up, but they are sending out new shoots. And again, if you top off your plant, they're not going to send energy to the tomatoes, they're going to send energy to regrowth. You might get something like this, which is perfect. In 4 weeks, these are going to be ready to harvest. Again, I'm just letting the leaves die off. I know that the die off is from the heat. It's not from a disease or anything like that. This guy's doing extremely well. I mean, absolutely beautiful. If I just showed you the top part, you'd be like, wow, I mean, that's really good for September. They're all coming back. Lots of tomatoes to pick. I'm on my 4th, harvesting of them. If you start seeing something like this on your tomato plants, by the way, that's getting bleached from the hot sun. Again, we're at 95, 100 degrees. This variety is German Johnson. I sell all these seeds at my seed shop, this variety. Please check out therustedgarden.com. Please check out my blog, The Rusted Garden Journal. Just about all my videos are going to get a sister article on the blog detailing the information that I'm saying, so you don't have to take notes. Beautiful green tomatoes forming, perfect time The temperatures were supposed to break, but we got another heat wave rolling in here. But they're coming back strong, and it's because I'm working as hard as I can to really keep up on the watering. Another beauty right in there. And this will continue until the soil temperatures start dropping regularly into the 50s or until a frost comes. They're going to keep growing. Absolutely beautiful. It is a challenge to keep up on the watering, the spraying, and the feeding. But a lot of us, again, neglect our tomato plants when that high heat of July and August roll in, and we just let them die off. If you start taking care of them now, and you have a good 4 to 6 weeks left of growing time, you're going to get a whole other wave of tomatoes. This is a Chef's Green, beautiful green yellow tomatoes. Tons of tomatoes to harvest. You're going to see so many tomatoes I still need to pull off, the beginning of September. The whole key, and this is what I'm recommending highly, is begin to water these plants more, and today give them a big drink of a water-soluble fertilizer. There's also a myth that if you give them something like fish emulsion with a 5% nitrogen right now, you're just going to get all this growth. You want that, especially where you have a good 4 weeks, 6 weeks left of growth time for these plants. That extra nitrogen is not going to translate just into leaf growth. It's going to help them recover from the heat, from the drought, and you're going to get a lot of flowers. This plant is coming back really nicely. Tomatoes will be forming on here. So give them a drink of any water-soluble fertilizers that you have. Right now it's not the time to put down necessarily compost or organic granular fertilizer. Sometimes that needs to break down more. If you have well broken down compost, that's great to put in. But the water-soluble will give these plants not only nitrogen, but phosphorus and potassium to get growing. This tomato variety is the Gladiator hybrid. It's a wonderful hybrid tomato, very meaty, paste-type tomatoes. It's outside my garden, and again, I've been doing a series on this from the very beginning, and this video will be out probably in October once the frost comes, but I've been showing the whole life of this plant. So it's protected because it's outside my garden. This keeps the deer from getting to it. Let me remove this. Here's an example where the deer ate the tip of this vine, and then a new sucker is growing right there. That's all that topping off is going to do. It's not going to send more energy to these tomatoes. The plant doesn't know. It just thinks it's damaged, and it wants to continue to expand. It's a vine. Vines want to send out more vines and just get bigger and bigger. The best thing you can do, as I already talked about, is increase the watering, give them some water-soluble fertilizer. This plant has really been taken care of a lot more than the rest of the plants you just saw because I'm doing an ongoing series over the entire year. And just look at all these beautiful fruit. Sometimes by having less tomato plants, giving the ones that you have more care, more regular watering, better spraying, regular feeding, the plants are just gonna go crazy. So many little tomatoes, lots of flowers, and this plant is absolutely beautiful. To sum up, your fall tomatoes, late August, early September as fall is coming in, water them more, give them a water-soluble feeding, give them one more spray. Don't worry about topping them off. That's a myth. It's not going to make any difference. If you have a lot of green tomatoes, you just pick them, bring them in the house, put them on your shelf, window ledge. They're going to ripen. They're going to ripen at their own speed. You can also really make some delicious fried green tomatoes. There's always something you can do with your tomato plants. You can make green pasta sauce. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. I have a podcast linked in the video description. I do 2 podcasts a month. It's called the Rusted Garden Homestead Podcast, and I also have my blog, the Rusted Garden Journal. Thanks so much for watching.